The refreshing morning air fills my lungs as I take a deep breath, the earthy scent of the forest reinvigorating my senses. Rays of sunlight filter through the canopy above, speckling the trail ahead with shifting patches of light that guide our way. I shift my heavy backpack, adjusting the straps as I continue hiking alongside my 4 closest friends. We met back in college a few years ago, brought together by late nights chatting in the dorms over cheap beer and dreams of future adventures. Now in our late 20s, those dreams have become reality whenever we can coordinate schedules for trips like this. The demands of careers and relationships often get in the way, but we cherish these opportunities to reconnect with each other and nature. I glance over at Ryan as he inhales deeply and smiles. "Man, I've really missed this," he says. "Getting a break from the daily grind, the fresh air, the peace and quiet, it's just what I needed." "No kidding," replies Sam from up ahead. "After the week I've had, the silence out here is music to my ears." She adjusts the straps of her backpack as she walks, shifting the weight across her shoulders. We all murmur in agreement as we continue along the shaded trail, the old-growth evergreens looming over us on both sides. It's like wandering through a secluded cathedral, the soaring trunks like giant pillars reaching up into the canopy high above. They must be over 100 feet tall, blocking out most of the sunlight except for a few intrepid beams. The faint tapping of a woodpecker echoes in the distance, and the occasional scurry of a squirrel across our path are the only sounds puncturing the tranquility. "How much farther until we get to the lake?" asks Ashley, glancing over at me since I'm navigating with the map. I trace our route along the crumpled paper in my hands. "Should just be another mile or so if we keep up this pace. We'll have to cut west once the trail forks up ahead." Ashley sighs. "My feet are already killing me, and we have 4 more days of this?" She laughs lightheartedly, and I know she doesn't really mind. As much as we joke about the hardships of hiking, being out here together is worth every ache and pain. After another 20 minutes, the trees open up suddenly, giving way to a sprawling meadow dotted with wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. A sea of purple and yellow blooms stretches out before us. In the distance, the promised lake shimmers under the midday sun. "This is perfect," exclaims Tyler, shrugging off his backpack next to a fallen moss-covered log. "Let's stop and make camp before we get to the lake. That way we don't have to lug all our gear down there." We eagerly drop our packs and unroll our tents, laying claim to spots among the wildflowers. The openness of the meadow feels liberating after the confined trail. I breathe deeply again, filling my lungs with the sweet floral scent mixing with earth and grass. Once the campsite is set up, Ryan gathers kindling from the edge of the woods while Sam takes out the foldable camping chairs. Ashley unpacks the cooler of snacks and drinks. Meanwhile, Tyler attempts to assemble the portable grill we brought, swearing under his breath as he fumbles with the parts. I kneel and stack some loose stones into a ring, then grab the matches from my pack along with some newspaper and lint balls. "Let me work my fire magic," I say with a grin. The others chuckle since I always take point on getting the campfire started. Soon, I have a modest fire crackling within the stone ring, tendrils of fragrant smoke drifting up into the blue sky. Tyler finally gets the grill assembled and places it over the flames. The rich aroma of meat sizzling over the fire makes my mouth water. Before long, we're passing around piping hot dogs and chilled beers, the perfect campground meal. Conversation flows easily as we relax around the fire. We reminisce about past adventures and discuss our lives back home, catching up on relationships, jobs, and family drama. Things we rarely have time to talk about during hurried phone calls and text exchanges when we're caught up in our own worlds. I sigh contentedly, leaning back in my folding chair. This feels like home to me, surrounded by nature's splendor and my closest friends. "Let's tell ghost stories," suggests Tyler with a playful grin. Trust Tyler to veer our conversation toward the dark and macabre. But we're all amused by the idea. Ashley goes first, spinning a tale about a haunted mansion in New Orleans, complete with buried secrets and vengeful phantoms. Sam recounts a haunting she swears her cousin witnessed as a child, with a ghostly woman in white prowling the attic each night. After Tyler finishes with his ghostly hitchhiker tale, all eyes turn to me. I know the perfect creepy local legend to share next. Leaning in toward the campfire, I lower my voice and begin. "Let me tell you guys about the Crooked Men. According to stories passed down in these parts, they're twisted creatures that lurk deep in the forest, only daring to come out at night. With gnarled limbs and spines that bend in unnatural ways, They skulk between the trees, always hungry for their next victim. I described their gaunt bodies, elongated limbs, and the sharp claws adorning their freakishly long fingers. Some say they can mimic human voices, calling out to lost travelers to lure them straight into their clutches. Their sunken eyes glow like hot coals in the darkness, and their howls can curdle your blood. Over the years, more than a few folks have vanished in these woods at night, never to be seen again. And locals whisper that the crooked men dragged them back to their lairs to feast. My grandfather warned me to avoid this forest after dark ever since I was a kid. Because once you catch sight of one and stare into its evil eyes, you're as good as gone. I conclude in a dramatic whisper. So keep your eyes and ears open when darkness falls. You never know what might be lurking out there. I finish my tale and we collectively shiver, peering apprehensively into the shadows between the trees. I can tell I've gotten into everyone's heads. As we eventually settle into our sleeping bags, I know I'll be dreaming of twisted creatures stalking me through the night woods. But that's part of the fun of camping, bringing the dark lore of the wilderness to life in your imagination, and wondering if its monsters could actually be real. Ryan scoffs amusedly while Sam rolls her eyes at my theatrics. But suddenly a faint howl pierces the quiet forest air, sending a chill down my spine. It echoes for a moment before fading again. "What was that?" asks Julia uneasily, peering out at the tree line. I follow her gaze but see nothing stirring. "Probably just a coyote or something," Sam suggests, but there's a nervous edge to her voice that wasn't there before. "Yeah, we're safe by the fire," adds Ryan in an attempt to reassure us. "Nothing's going to bother us here." I toss another log onto the flames, watching the sparks dance upward. We all sit silently for several minutes, ears straining for other noises. But there is only the gentle crackling of the fire, punctuated occasionally by one of the logs shifting and crumbling into ash. Eventually, Tyler breaks the tension by launching into another exaggerated ghost story. We all force laughter, the uneasy atmosphere dissipating as swiftly as it arose. The rest of the evening passes amiably as we chat under the stars, fueled by beer, snacks, and each other's company, until we can no longer stifle our yawns. "I'm going to turn in," announces Sam, standing up and stretching. She ducks into her tent, the glow of her flashlight briefly visible through the nylon walls before it clicks off. Ryan and Julia follow soon after until only Ashley, Tyler, and I remain by the dwindling fire. I stand reluctantly. "Yeah, guess I better get some shut-eye too. Night, you guys." "Wait, one more story?" pleads Tyler, but I just laugh. "Nope, you'll give me nightmares. See you in the morning." I slip into the welcome comfort of my sleeping bag, the day's exertion catching up as my body sinks heavily into the cushioned ground. My eyes slide closed, mind drifts toward sleep. But suddenly I'm jolted alert by a blood-curdling scream from the woods. I bolt upright, heart pounding as the shriek echoes through the night. It sounds almost human. I scramble out of my tent, nearly tripping. I see the others emerging from their tents too, confusion and fear etched on their faces in the firelight. "What the hell was that?" hisses Ashley. "I don't know." "Tyler, are you trying to mess with us?" Ryan asks with a skeptical frown. "Dude, that wasn't me," Tyler insists, eyes wide. We huddle close together, peering out into the dense, dark forest surrounding us. The trees have taken on a more ominous, threatening presence. Anything could be lurking between those trunks mere yards away. My imagination runs wild with speculation about what made that awful scream. A person in pain or being slaughtered? Some violent predator? Or just a frightened animal? The minutes drag on painstakingly. We all flinch at every rustle of leaves or creak of a branch, ears straining. But the scream does not repeat. Eventually, Ryan mutters, "Let's just go back to sleep." No one seems thrilled at the prospect, but we reluctantly return to our tents. I know I won't be getting any more rest tonight, though. Lying rigid in my sleeping bag, I envision lurking figures and glistening teeth each time I close my eyes. I should have remembered we weren't the only ones wandering this forest at night. And whatever is out there sharing this darkness with us, I can only pray we don't cross paths before dawn. Morning sunlight filters through the nylon walls of my tent, rousing me from a restless sleep. My mind is still unsettled after last night's disturbance. That chilling scream echoed in my dreams all night long, twisting into shrieks of terror and anguish. Waking brings little relief, though, just lingering unease about what could be lurking out there just past the tree line. I emerge reluctantly from my tent, squinting against the brightness. The others are already up, moving slowly as they rekindle the fire and prepare breakfast. The events of last night hang over us like a dark cloud, punctuated by tense, wary glances toward the forest. We eat a quick meal in near silence, limited to murmurs about passing the coffee or salt. The jovial atmosphere from yesterday has evaporated. As soon as the last bite is taken, Ashley announces, "Let's break camp and get moving." We pack up our gear and shoulder our packs. I consult the map, tracing a route along the lakeshore. If we follow the shoreline, we should eventually come across a trail that leads out of these woods. Away from whatever made that chilling scream, I hope. "Sounds good, lead the way," says Ryan with forced cheeriness. I can tell he's also eager to put distance between us and this area. We set off, leaves and twigs crunching underfoot. The sun has burned away the morning mist, but a lingering chill remains in the shadowed parts of the trail. I rub my arms to warm up as we walk. Initially, the route I've chosen along the lakeshore is easy. The trees give way to sandy banks and rocks, the tranquil water glittering under the cloudless sky. But after we round a bend, the way becomes more overgrown. We're forced to climb over moss-slick boulders and push through bushes clinging to the rocky soil. Still, it's beautiful country out here. Wildflowers sprout amidst the stones, and a family of ducks floats lazily across a tranquil inlet in the distance. Under different circumstances, I would be happily snapping photos of the scenic views. Now I barely notice them, focused only on moving forward, putting more distance between us and that campsite. I'm consulting the map again when Sam suddenly shouts, "Wait, stop!" I halt, my heartbeat quickening as I look around for the danger. But Sam is several yards off the trail, waving us over frantically where the ground dips into a little hollow. Tyler and I exchange an uneasy glance before making our way toward her. As we approach, I spot what has Sam so agitated. A hand protrudes from the soil. Fingers splayed upward as if grasping for help. Shock roots me in place momentarily. Sam is already clawing desperately at the dirt with her hands. "There's someone buried here," she cries. "Come on, help me!" We snap out of our daze and drop to our knees, digging furiously. More of the arm is uncovered, along with part of the torso. The face is still submerged, but by the size it looks like a man. I claw at the ground until my fingers ache, dirt cramming under my nails. With a final heave, we pull the body free of its earthen tomb. Beetles and worms writhe in the newly upturned soil. The man coughs weakly, caked eyelids fluttering. He's older, with gray hair and a gaunt frame. Tyler presses a water bottle to his cracked lips while I study his filthy, emaciated form. His wrists were marked and bleeding as if he had been bound. Who would do something like this? Bury someone alive and leave them to die a slow, agonizing death? I'm about to suggest trying to carry him out when Julia shouts in alarm from nearby. She's staring downward with a hand clasped over her mouth, face pale. I reluctantly leave the man's side and join her. My gut twists as I spot what has Julia so distraught. Another hand protrudes from the soil a few feet away. I feel like I'm going to vomit as I realize the ground here is littered with these earthen graves. We must have stumbled upon a makeshift burial ground. Frantically, we dig up the other mounds one by one, revealing more victims in varying states of decay. Some are long dead, their rotting faces frozen in agonized grimaces, skin slack and desiccated. One elderly man's glassy eyes are wide in an expression of sheer terror, mouth open in a silent scream. Maggots spill out from his lips and writhe across his sallow cheeks. The stench of rot is overwhelming as insects and worms infest the corpses. In another mound we uncover a young woman, couldn't be more than 20, her torso riddled with deep lacerations exposing bone and oozing blackened tissue. The wounds reveal signs of prolonged torture before death granted mercy. Her final moments must have been unimaginable agony. One mound contains only a severed head and hand sticking up from the dirt, the limbs torn savagely from the rest of the poor soul's body. I gag at the sight. Their captor must have delighted in dismembering this victim while they still drew breath. The facial features of some are so decayed as to be unrecognizable as human remains. Stripped of skin and muscles, their skulls seem to grimace up at us through shattered teeth. We work to recover each body, no matter how far gone, driven by a need to honor these victims even in death. As we unwrap a stained, dirt-caked sheet, we find a young child, no older than 6 or 7. His tiny frame is emaciated and broken at unnatural angles, but his face retains an expression of innocence, eyes closed as if in peaceful sleep. It's the most merciful fate any of these poor souls received. I choke back a sob, uttering a silent prayer over the boy's grave before gently covering it again. By the time we finish our grim work, vomit and tears stain the ground and our nails are cracked and bleeding. But we refuse to abandon them to this earthly hell. Though we were too late to save their lives, we fulfilled a basic duty: to uncover their fates and honor their remains. It's the only sliver of dignity we can restore to them now. As we gaze upon the fruits of our labor, I fear the image of their anguish will haunt me to my own grave. Others cling weakly to life like the first man, breathing raggedly through tubes poked above ground. These plastic tubes, inserted into their mouths and protruding just above the soil, seem to be the only reason they still draw breath. Without this grim lifeline, they would have slowly suffocated. The intentionality of it makes my gut twist with horror and rage. This was no accidental tragedy, but a deliberate, meticulously planned method of torture. What kind of depraved, sinister mind could conceive of such a heinous act? Keeping victims permanently trapped, paralyzed in claustrophobic darkness, with only a tube allowing them the barest gasps of air. I imagine the psychological agony these poor souls endured over days, weeks, or even longer. Immobilized in a coffin of dirt, unable to move or scream for help as their oxygen slowly ran out. Clawing weakly at the walls of their earthen prison as damp soil clogged their nostrils. Pleading silently for a mercy that would never come. The isolation alone would drive anyone to madness. Deprived of light, sounds, or human touch, clinging desperately to each rise and fall of their chest. Trapped with only their darkest thoughts and visions of death. It's a miracle any retained their sanity long enough to be found. Even after we free them from the cold ground, the trauma still haunts their eyes. They flinch and whimper at each touch as if expecting new torments. When offered water, some lap at it frantically like half-starved animals. The tubes, which sustained their fragile lives, now serve as a reminder of brutality. As I gaze down at these breathing tubes discarded in the dirt, I can barely comprehend the level of sadism such an act requires. It goes beyond murder into the realm of systematic, drawn-out torture. What kind of monster finds pleasure in prolonging human suffering? In these quiet woods, a truly horrific evil lurks beneath the serene veneer. And it's a powerless, sickening feeling knowing such darkness exists untethered in the world. There are too many to help them all. Still, we work feverishly, freeing stiff limbs from their confines and offering sips of water to those still living. I lose track of time, focused only on the gruesome work ahead. The sun is dipping low when Ashley finally drops her shovel, collapsing onto the blood-stained ground. "We have to stop," she rasps, voice ragged. The rest of us halt our efforts, chests heaving with exertion. Surrounding us is a sight of horror. Some freed victims laid out on the ground moaning weakly while others lie still. We did what we could, but it wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. I want nothing more than to flee this evil place and purge the memory of it from my mind. But the sun is setting, and wandering in the dark seems even more dangerous now. In silence, we gather what wood we can find to build a fire, hoping to keep predators at bay. No one suggests trying to sleep. I doubt rest would come anyway, not with this gruesome graveyard laid out around us. We sit huddled close together as darkness descends, bloody and exhausted. I stare into the crackling flames, unable to erase the images seared into my mind today. Whatever evil lurks in this forest seems to be escalating, as if our presence here has attracted its malice. That first scream was just a taster of the horrors to come. And as another night falls around us, I fear the worst is yet to be revealed. The damp chill of early morning sinks into my bones as I stand watch near the smoldering fire. No one slept last night after the horrors we uncovered. How could we, with the dead lying all around us? Their rotting faces and frail, abused forms are seared into my mind. Even the bit of rest I caught was plagued by visions of their agony. As the sky lightens, I nudge the others awake. Weak light illuminates the gruesome scene surrounding us. Some of the survivors we managed to dig up whimper and moan on the ground, too feeble to move. The tubes we removed from their mouths, intended to prolong their suffering, lie discarded nearby. and the lifeless bodies of those we could not save stare blankly past us. I mourn for them, these innocent souls who did not deserve such cruelty. What atrocities they must have endured at the hands of their captor before being buried to die slowly. Even in death, they cannot escape their tormentor. The sight of the dead bodies scattered around us is horrific. As much as we want to lay them properly to rest, we know we need to leave them undisturbed for the authorities. Gathering our packs, we press onward along the lakeshore, eager to get out of these woods and find help. "We need to keep moving," says Ryan gently. "We have to get out of these woods and find help." Leaving feels so wrong, like we're abandoning them all over again. But staying is not an option. The evil that dwells here has already proven itself capable of unspeakable cruelty. We need to get away while we still can. Before departing, we check on the remaining survivors. One seems on the brink of death, his breathing shallow and eyes glazed with pain. I offer him some water, but he only moans pitifully. "What happened here?" I ask him urgently. "Who did this to you?" But either trauma or weakness prevents him from answering. One of the more lucid survivors manages to rasp, "Please, don't let him find me. Don't let him take me back." She dissolves into frantic sobbing beyond any comforting. My heart aches, wishing we could end her suffering. But all we can do is promise to send help before stumbling onward. We follow the lakeshore again, each lost in our grim thoughts. The screams and pleas of those victims echo in my mind, making me flinch at every snapping twig or rustling bush. Something or someone monstrous is lurking out there, and there's no telling when it might strike at us again. Near midday, we come across a small beach area with large stones and benches fashioned from logs. It clearly used to be a scenic rest stop for hikers. Now the benches lie smashed, graffiti staining the rocks with sinister symbols. Julia shudders. "This place gives me the creeps. Let's keep moving." But before we can, a piercing shriek shatters the quiet. I whirl toward the noise as a disheveled figure stumbles from the trees and onto the beach. He's a middle-aged man, clothes ripped and filthy. His gray hair is wild, and matted leaves cling to it. He falls to his knees, sobbing and clawing at his face. Hesitantly, I approach him, signaling for the others to hang back. "Sir? Are you hurt? Did someone attack you?" He mutters and whimpers unintelligibly, body trembling. I make out only a few discernible words. "So much blood. Couldn't watch. Had to get away." "Get away from where?" I ask, dread pooling in my gut. "Who else is out here?" At this he goes rigid. His wild eyes fix on me with sudden lucidity. In a raspy voice he murmurs, "You shouldn't have come. None of you should be here. Can't you hear them?" He cocks his head. "The calls, the cries, they're coming." I follow his gaze toward the forest. I hear it too, distant shrieks and howls underlying the natural woodland noises. The blood drains from my face. The man starts to rise, still mumbling feverishly. "Need to get away before he catches me again!" Before I can stop him, he turns and flees back into the trees. I start to pursue, but a chilling howl nearby freezes me in my tracks. It sounds inhuman, nothing like the scream from that first night. I retreat to the others. Sam grips my arm, eyes wide with fear. What the hell was that thing? That noise? The rest look equally shaken. "I don't know, but I think we should go a different way," I say, glancing nervously in the direction of those unnatural cries. The group quickly gathers their discarded packs, eager to leave. As we pass the damaged benches, I glimpse dark stains splashed across the wooden seats. Blood. My heart lurches. Many people, or animals, must have died here. This evil is not confined to the burial ground. It has stained the entire area. We plunge into the forest again, plowing through dense underbrush in desperation to escape the shoreline. Thorns and stones bite at my ankles, but I don't slow down. Better to face physical pain than the malevolence lurking back near the lake. When we finally stop to rest, a new noise drifts through the trees. A rhythmic chanting, barely audible. The words are indistinguishable, but they make my skin crawl with fear. I want to block my ears, to drown out the sinister sounds of this forest. Sam grabs my shoulder, eyes brimming with tears. "I can't take much more of this. We have to get out of here!" I clasp her hand, hoping to provide some meager comfort. But inwardly, my composure is threatening to collapse. Whatever evil infects these woods grows stronger by the hour, taunting us, hurting us like prey. And if we can't find an escape soon, I fear we will end up like the scores of poor souls back at the makeshift gravesite. Stay close, I tell the others. We'll keep moving until we find a road or shelter. But with each step, the woods only seem to grow darker. We've been walking for most of the day, trying to find a way out, but there are no trails or landmarks I recognize. Exhaustion weighs heavy on our shoulders, but stopping to rest doesn't feel safe. Not with those ominous sounds still echoing through the trees as darkness encroaches. Up ahead, the glow of a flashlight catches my eye through the bushes. I signal urgently for the others to get down as I creep forward. Peering through the leaves, I spot a small cave opening tucked into a rocky outcropping. Judging by the flickering light within, someone seems to be taking refuge inside. I debate whether to approach whoever it is. They could be lost like us and in need of help. Or they could be one of the evil forces plaguing this forest. But without any better options, we decide to risk it. As we draw near, a gunshot splits the air, sending us diving for cover. A rough voice shouts, "Stay back! Don't think I won't shoot." I call out hesitantly, "Wait, we're not going to hurt you." We're lost hikers. No response comes. But at least he hasn't fired again yet. "Can we please take shelter here for the night?" I plead into the darkness. After an agonizing silence, the gruff voice finally says, "Make it quick. And no funny business, you hear?" Cautiously, we approach the cave, ducking low beneath the rocky overhang. Inside sits a ragged, bearded man clutching a rifle across his lap. His face is lined and weathered, eyes gleaming with suspicion. But he shows no sign of attacking us. Tyler introduces us briefly, keeping his hands visible. The man responds only with, "Name's Joe." He jerks his chin toward the inner cavern. There's more room to sleep back there. Too exhausted to be properly wary, we drop our gear gratefully and huddle together in the small chamber he indicated. The cave walls somewhat muffle the sounds of the woods, offering mild comfort. But sleep still does not come easy. I drift off eventually, only to be tormented by vivid nightmares. Flashes of dead-eyed faces buried up to their necks in dirt, clawing hands bursting free from fresh graves. I jolt awake with a gasp, coated in cold sweat. The others look equally shaken, having apparently shared my visions. Heavy fatigue tugs at our bodies, but our minds resist any meaningful rest. Seeking a distraction, I wander cautiously back toward the mouth where Joe still keeps watch. He eyes me distrustfully as I approach and ask, "Do you live out here alone?" Joe shrugs. "For the most part. Better than being around people. Folks can't be trusted." He lapses back into silence, gaze fixed on the shadows dancing across the cave walls. I return to the others and keep my voice low as I say, "I don't think Joe is responsible for what we saw, but he knows more than he's saying." Before we can speculate further, a chorus of chilling howls echoes outside the cave. Joe snatches up his rifle and fires into the night blindly. "I told you they'd find us," he snarls over his shoulder. "Ain't nowhere safe from them." Heart hammering, I creep toward the cave entrance, risking a glance outside. Through the inky night, I can just make out crouched, emaciated forms stalking silently between the trees. More malformed shapes shuffle in the darkness behind them. I stumble back in horror as one creature turns, revealing a face that is not quite human. Its scabbed flesh stretches tight over an elongated skull. Shadowed eye sockets regard me with predatory intelligence. It has the general shape of a man, but something is horribly wrong about its proportions. Its spine curves and bends at odd angles no human skeleton could manage. The arms, too, seem slightly out of joint, with wrists that turn nearly backward. Tufts of wiry hair sprout unevenly on its mottled scalp. As it peers through the gap, its mouth splits into a grin, revealing rows of jagged, rotting teeth. A foul odor wafts through the air, smelling of death and decay. Behind this crooked aberration, more misshapen forms shuffle about on two legs. But their gaits seem unnatural, almost marionette-like in their exaggerated movements. I remember then the whispered legends surrounding this forest, tales of unnatural creatures said to prowl the woods in the dark hours. Locals call them many names: hags, goblins, crooked men. Their origins are uncertain, but the descriptions remain chillingly consistent. Emaciated humanoid monsters that snatch up lost travelers and prey upon innocent lives. In the stories, some say they are demons summoned long ago by woods-dwelling witches and warlocks. Others claim they are the work of a mad scientist conducting twisted experiments deep in the forest. A few even suggest these crooked men are the horribly mutated descendants of early settlers who went mad living in isolation. Whatever their true nature, all accounts warn to avoid the woods at night when the crooked men roam, because their intentions toward outsiders are undoubtedly sinister. Judging by the sadistic burial ground we uncovered, they see human life as disposable playthings. As I gaze upon their grotesque faces leering through the cave entrance, I fear we will become their next victims. Some legends say the crooked men can mimic human voices to lure their prey deeper into the forest, where they set fiendish traps and vicious snares. Others caution they have poison claws and fangs capable of paralyzing a grown man, leaving him helpless as they take him back to their lair for a slow, agonizing end. But all the tales agree on one thing: none who venture into the crooked woods at night come back alive. Frantically, I gather rocks, blocking the cave entrance as an inhuman chorus of shrieks swells outside. Ryan and Sam push a heavy boulder across the gap, sealing us in. For now, we are safe, but we are also trapped. Julia's panicked breathing echoes through the cavern. "What's happening?" "What are those things?" Joe just snorts derisively. "You folks really aren't from around here, are you?" At our bewildered stares, he shakes his head. "Those are the crooked men. Unholy creatures. Been lurking in these parts for decades, snatching up any poor soul foolish enough to wander this forest." I think back to the fresh graves and the survivors' pleas for mercy. Revulsion twists my gut. "Why do they take people?" Ashley asks in a small voice. And what do they do with them?" Joe shrugs. "Ain't nobody knows for sure. 'Cept it ain't nothing good. Folks who get taken don't tend to come back." He spits on the ground in contempt. A scraping sound against the barricade makes us recoil. Skeletal fingers probe through gaps in the rocks as unseen horrors press their malformed faces to the cracks, sniffing and snuffling like animals. Joe cocks his rifle, aiming it into the darkness. "Ain't no getting out now till sunrise. Best settle in for the long haul, folks." But as the creatures taunt us from feet away, sunlight feels impossibly far off. Trapped in here, I fear we will share the fate of those buried, becoming another tragic mystery of the crooked woods. The monster's claws rake endlessly at the stones while they chatter and mutter in twisted, foul language. Even with my hands clapped over my ears, I cannot block out their revolting vocalizations. I huddle with the others, our tear-streaked faces illuminated by Joe's flashlight beam as we wait out this endless night. Absolute darkness presses in as I slowly regain consciousness. It takes a moment to get my bearings and remember we had taken refuge in the cave last night. Joe's flashlight must have died at some point, leaving us in complete darkness. The scraping and taunting from outside faded hours ago. Only eerie silence and darkness remain. I reach out, my hand brushing against someone. Ashley whimpers softly. "We're all still here, at least intact. For now." "Anyone got matches?" I rasp into the darkness. After some fumbling, a flame flares to life, revealing grimy, exhausted faces scattered throughout the cave. Joe sits silently behind us, picking at his teeth with a hunting knife. In the morning light, the barricade looks partially dismantled. Rocks and branches are scattered across the ground, but whether dispersed from the inside or outside is unclear. Cautiously, I approach the cave entrance, peering through gaps in the remaining barrier. The forest outside sits calm and quiet in the morning light. No sign of the creatures that besieged us overnight. With the others' help, I cleared the rest of the blockade. As we crawl into the fresh air, Sam asks Joe, "Will those things come back tonight?" Joe shrugs, shouldering his rifle. "Hard to say. Ain't no understandin' monsters. But I ain't keen to wait around and find out." Without another word, he turns and treks off into the brush. Whether from bravery or foolishness, he seems determined to face the dangers alone. Tyler frowns as we watch Joe disappear between the trees. "Think we should go with him? Safety in numbers and all that?" I shake my head. "No. Our best bet is still getting out of these woods and finding help. The mutilated dead and buried survivors are still out there, waiting to be reduced. And whatever warped intelligence guides those creatures, I fear tonight could bring further horrors we cannot yet fathom. We need to escape while we still can." Checking my bearings, I lead our band in the opposite direction from Joe's path. We move quietly and cautiously, ears straining for any unnatural sounds. The morning sun provides some comfort, but I know darkness will descend again all too soon. We've been walking for about an hour when voices sound in the distance ahead. My heart leaps with hope. Do you hear that? Come on! Picking up speed, I crash through the underbrush until arriving at a wide dirt road cutting through the trees. On the road stand 2 police cars and several uniformed officers. One of them spots us and calls out, "This is a restricted area. What's your business here?" I stagger forward, almost weeping with relief. The others crowd around me, all trying to explain at once about the gruesome scene we stumbled upon. The officers' expressions become grim as they take in our disheveled, dirt-caked appearance. "You kids better come with us," the cop says. As we pile into the patrol cars, I finally feel a small glimmer of hope. We've made it out, and now we can guide the police back to rescue those still trapped. After supplying statements and being examined at the local hospital, we lead a team of officers and paramedics back into the woods as evening descends. Apprehension pools in my gut as the sky darkens. But I take comfort from the number of trained personnel surrounding us. Surely we will be safe from any monsters lurking about. When we arrive at the lakeshore gravesite, though, it has been demolished. It almost looks like the ground has been turned over, erasing any evidence of the burials. Even the breathing tubes protruding from the earth are gone. Pressing further into the woods, we find the resting area where we encountered the crazed survivor. But any traces of blood or gore have been scrubbed away. The graffiti remains, but I fear some random symbols will not be enough to convince the increasingly doubtful cops of the danger and depravity lurking in these parts. It seems whatever evil dwells here, it is powerful enough to conceal its misdeeds. But I know what we saw, what we survived. The images are seared into my memory forever. As dusk falls, the officers suggest we head back and continue the search in the morning. But suddenly, the eerie sounds of the previous nights echo from the shadows. Distorted shrieks, howls, and chanting drifting through the trees. The cops draw their weapons, shining flashlights into the dark gaps between trunks. "Come out and identify yourself," one calls out gruffly. But of course no human presence reveals itself. Only skittering movements in the underbrush and elongated shapes slinking out of sight. One of the officers shakes his head. Some local kids must be trying to mess with us. Let's pack it up. But as we turn back, I glimpse amid the distant trees a pair of glowing eyes and a crooked, inhuman smile leering in the darkness. A gnarled hand waves slowly in mocking farewell. Exhausted and defeated, we have no choice but to abandon the search for now. But I vow to myself that I will return to these woods someday. I will find evidence and make the world see the truth of what breeds here in the shadows. I will do whatever it takes to avenge those poor, buried souls, punish their killer, and purge these grotesque creatures from their wooded sanctuary. For now, though, we can only bide our time. The creatures let us escape once. But if we dare to trespass in their domain again, we may not get a second chance. As the patrol cars pull away, carrying us back toward civilization and safety, I know this is not over. Not as long as evil still lurks untouched in the forest. And so, the shadows of the story fade, but the chill it leaves behind lingers in the air. We hope this tale has intrigued, perhaps even unsettled you, as all good mysteries should. Thank you for journeying with us through this eerie narrative. If you've enjoyed this spine-tingling experience and wish to wander through more tales of the unknown and the unexplained, remember to like this video. And to ensure you never miss a chance to peer into the shadows with us, please subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you become a part of our exploratory journey into the heart of darkness and mystery. So, until next time, keep a watchful eye over your shoulder, for you never know what might be lurking in the corners of your reality. Sweet dreams, and may your nights be filled with thrilling tales and haunting whispers.